As a part of English methodology, we are going to discuss the topic lesson planning. So, before entering into the lesson planning, we must aware of the academic standards. So, as we know the importance of academic standards, especially in preparation of the period planning as well as coming to the unit plan or annual plan. So, here the academic standards, especially it is talking about these helps us to plan teaching tasks. The academic standards are helping us in teaching tasks. So, here these academic standards describes the educational objectives. So, here why we are learning academic standards? So, these standards are describing the educational objectives. So, the objectives are very important one in our day to day life. So, coming to the planning academic standards. So, the knowledge and skills whatever we want to plan or whatever we want to make the student to learn, the knowledge and skills that students are expected to learn and use them at a specific stage of their education and life at large. So, here these academic standards are making us to come out with their expected learning outcomes. To success in the academic standards, especially in reaching the educational objectives, we have to make a plan. So, the planning is very important in our day to day life. So, without planning we can't get a success in our day to day life. For example, our day starts from 5:30 or 6 o'clock till the bedtime we have to plan everything. If there is any disturbance in planning, definitely we are not going to achieve or finishing that task. If any plan was left over today, for today, whatever we planned, so that should be the first priority for the next day. Then only there will not be any disturbance in our regular work. So, the planning is of unique importance in the teaching learning material. Planning is of unique importance in the teaching learning material. So, this planning helps us to divide the syllabus into workable chunks. So, here the syllabus is made with so many chapters and it is consisted with a number of words and all those. So, here for our convenience as a language teacher, they are making the subject or the units into different chunks, which is nothing but the specific parts to make the learner easily understood the topics. So, the planning ensures that to pay attention to the language skills in prescribed syllabus. So, the planning is especially making or ensuring that to pay attention to all the language skills in a prescribed syllabus. The planning ensures that we think of the other alternatives. So, when you plan, if you are not in a position to achieve, definitely we have to think in the what is the next other alternative to get success or to finish the particular task. So, the planning should be learner centered rather than the teacher centered. So, these days we have to focus more on the teacher, not instead of teacher centric, we have our concentration is child centric education. So, if the planning is in a proper way, then the teacher can concentrate on making the student to learn the language, especially the English language. So, the planning gives us an opportunity to understand our preparedness for the teaching a particular lesson. So, without planning we can't prepare in a proper way. So, the teacher intention is making the student to understand the lesson or the concepts in a proper way. So, if it is not in a position to achieve, so the objective of the teacher, the objective of the lesson may not get succeed. So, here the word planning is giving to the teacher, it is an opportunity to understand our preparedness for teaching a particular lesson. This is very important one for the teacher. The planning is useful as it helps a teacher to plan the activities in advance, makes teaching flexible and gives a chance to review and organize the lesson. So, what way the planning is going to be helpful to the teacher? So, the planning is very helpful to teacher. Prior only the teacher has to make a plan. So, based on that what type of activities they have to conduct in the classroom to make the learner to understand the topic. So, this will be done in an advance, so that based on that the teacher can in a position to achieve the objective of that particular topic. And the same time the planning is making the teacher in a teaching flexible and it is giving a chance to review and organize the lesson. If the lesson plan or whatever the period plan prepared by the teacher, if the objective of the content was not achieved by the teacher, definitely they can go for the modifications of changing the objectives, or it may be in the form of way of teaching. Instead of continuously talking or explaining to the students, then they can plan out in the different manner, or by making different activities, or by giving number of tasks to the students, so that whatever the objective which want to be achieved by the teacher, that is going to be achieved in a successful manner. So, this is also one of the basic important point for the planning, especially to the teacher. And planning is the secret of any successful endeavor. So, to get any success in our life, we need planning. If there is no planning, we are not going to get any whatever the desire or whatever the goals we want to achieve. So, the planning is very, very important one. It is nothing but the secret of any successful endeavor. And planning is organizing of our work. So, if we have proper planning, definitely our work will be organized. If there is a organization of the work, definitely it is making us to feel comfortable in explaining to the students, as well as it is making the student to understand the topic in a proper way. So, the planning is very, very important, especially for the preparation of the period plan for the teachers. So, in this planning we have different types of planning schedules. So, there are two types of planning schedules. So, in this, the first one is talking about long term and the second one is talking about short term. There are two types of planning schedules. The first one is long term and short term. So, what comes under long term means which is giving more time. As per our syllabus is concerned, as per our academic year is concerned for the 1 year, that is called as the annual plan or year plan. Along with this, we have unit or the periods or the lessons. So, here the unit plan and the year plan. So, year plan is around for the 220 working days of the school instructional hours, and unit plan is consisted based on the units or based on the lessons which were incorporated in the school curriculum. So, these year plan or annual plan and the unit plan are called as the long term plans. Coming to the lesson plan or period plan, these are considered as the short term plans. So, there are two types of planning schedule, one is long term and short term. In the long term, usually the annual plan and the unit plan, and coming to short term plans, we have lesson planning and the period planning. Coming to next one, so the year plan, this is also known as the annual plan. So, every teacher has to involve in at the beginning of the academic year. So, usually the teacher has to prepare the annual plan for that particular subject, especially talking about the English subject. The teacher has to involve in at the beginning of the academic year. Exactly how many lessons were given in the 8th class or 9th class or 10th class based on the standard of the students, and how many units were there, and based on that they have to go for the annual planning. So, this is a comprehensive plan and needs to be worked out carefully, because this is talking about the whole academic year. So, whatever the 220 working days were there for the school instructional working days, those all should be fulfilled in making the learners comfortable in learning the English language. So, before going for this annual plan preparation, the language teacher or the subject teacher should be very careful in preparation of this annual plan. If there is no comprehension plan, if there is no proper planning, if there is no accurate plan, the annual plan may not considered as the successful planning. So, in this annual plan, we have to keep few points in the mind to get our annual plan as a comprehensive plan. So, the first point is talking about we have to think into copy of the syllabus. So, how many units were there or how many lessons were there that particular class, that copy should be with the teacher. And the next one is copy of the textbooks. So, the textbook is very, very important one. This is also one of the major teaching learning material for the teacher as well as the student, and to be aware of the number of class periods available for teaching English every week. So, the school is meant for day per a week. Again, how many hours English class is going to get, and the next time we have to think into out of 200 working days, maybe few days we can kept it for the conducting of unit test as well as the essays, and for these we have to keep aside around 15 to 20 instructional days or the 20 instructional periods. So, out of this we can go for the around 190 periods for the academic year. So, the planning should be based on around 190 to 195 periods out of all the syllabus. So, to have a clear idea of the number of assignments, tests and examination we need to conduct. So, here what we discussed, out of 220 working days, anyway definitely the examination system will be there and some disturbances will be there in the academic year. So, that should be included as a part of framing the annual plan. And the next one, calendar of the school. So, based on this, we in the school themselves they are going to have their own calendar academic year. So, based on that they have their own plans. For example, conducting of annual day program and conducting of science fairs in the school, and sometimes the students are engaged for the field engagements or the excursions or the tours. These all the days we have to keep in the mind while framing the year plan. So, coming to the annual plan format. So, for which class you are taking, either it is 6th, 7th or 10th class, that should be very clear, and the subject. So, now we are talking about the English subject and total periods. Actually, the total periods were 220. So, based on the TLP period, the total lost periods. So, the lost periods means here these lost periods we can conclude for the conducting of examination for other activities, co-curricular or the extracurricular activities. And the next one is expected outcomes at the end of the year and targeted discourses. So, the discourses are very important one, which is talking about the written or the oral communications. So, coming to the last one is, by completing this all the annual plan for 220 working days included with the lost periods, what reflections the teacher received, that should be very clear. Based on that, by completing the class of 8th, either it may be 9th class, what were the reflections for the teacher, that should be very clear with the annual plan format. So, just here we had given a simple annual plan format unit. We are talking about the unit 1 and theme of the unit. So, first unit is talking about what and number of periods required. So, here these, for example, if 8th class is considered with 10 periods. So, based on that we have to bifurcate all these 190 working days for these 10 units. So, and what type of strategy you are following, means what type of method you are going to make the student. For example, if you are teaching prose to the student, definitely we have to give so many examples. If there will be a change or there will be a variation for the teaching of prose as well as teaching of poetry. And we have one more reading is, that is supplementary reader. So, all these 3 areas will not be taught to the students in the same manner. For example, if we are looking into the poetry part, definitely the teacher has to make the student to involve the poem and make them to practice, so that they are coming to know the importance of the poem and the rhythmic manner, everything should be very clear to the student. So, what type of strategy we are following, that should be very clear while the annual plan is framing. And next, what type of TLM, means what are the required resources for teaching learning material to make the student to understand that particular unit. And next, month. So, usually the academic year is going to start by the April, and in the April how many units we have to finish, how many classes or how many working days will be there for the month of April, that should be very clear. And program activities. So, what type of programs you want to organize, and based on that what type of activities. In general, to making the student as a language very perfect, we have to go for more activities. So, these all very important one while framing the annual plan. Coming to the next planning of the syllabus or the subject is unit plan or the lesson plan. So, previously we used to have units, nowadays this was changed into the lesson planning. So, a unit is a comprehensive chunk of the teaching material. So, here the unit is consisted with the number of components with the poetry or prose or the supplementary reader. Coming to the prose part, there may be a grammatical items. Each and every unit may be differed with the grammatical structures or the vocabulary part. So, based on that we have to make the student comfortable with the making into different parts. So, the unit is always theme based and allows a teacher to design a quite few pre-reading activities and also projects based on the theme. So, here to making the student to understand the unit or lesson in a proper way, giving the projects that related to the theme. The project should be theme based project should be allotted to the student. So, here the unit is always a theme based, the theme should be there. Ultimately, after completing the unit, the student will analyze themselves what was the moral in the story, what the theme is, that should be very clear to the students. And the teacher has to allow quite few pre-reading activities, so that they are coming to know the reading skill also. So, a unit plan deals with the narrative lessons, which is nothing but the stories, and descriptive pieces talking about the essays and creative writing. So, if the language teacher made the worth or the usefulness or the importance of each and every topic of the story or essay or creative writing with the different poems, then the each and every student will try to learn and try to focus more on the learning part of especially the English language. So, in this the teacher should carefully plan for budget required to cope with all the reading passages, and the same time teacher needs to plan time required for working out exercises of different types. So, each unit or each lesson is consisted with different types of exercises. So, these all the exercises we have to make into a proper planning. If there is no proper planning, definitely the student may not comfortable to learn the language talking about the grammatical part. So, these all the points should be very careful while framing this plan. Coming to Uni Plan format, class, subject, name of the unit and the number of periods required, and the same time the expected outcome. By completing that particular unit, exactly what the teacher is expecting from the student point of view. So, here these are the expected outcomes for the particular unit. So, here we can frame in this manner period plan details, period plan, what content it is talking about, or if it is mentioned as an activity, and what type of strategy you are following to make that activity as very effective, and next what type of resources or what type of TLM is required to make the content as very fruitful to the learner or for the students. To make the unit plan as very success, we have to keep few points in the mind, that is required components for the unit plan. So, first of all the unit title should be very clear, or which is nothing but the theme of the unit, and next one objectives. So, why you are teaching that particular unit to the student, these objectives we have to make it clear before going to plan the unit plan. Next one, activities. What type of activities were suitable to make that particular unit in a proper way. The activity should be very clear and they should be well advanced with the teacher. Then only without having any disturbances the activity will be conducted in the classroom. Strategy. What type of strategy is comfortable to teach for that particular unit. Teaching poetry is different way and teaching prose is different way. So, based on the theme or based on the title, the strategy should be followed. Next one is activities for the practicing. So, what type of activities are making the student to feel more comfortable to practice? So, here the acquisition of the language, especially the English language, is possible only through the regular practice. So, the practice should be as a activity based. In their day-to-day life, the student should follow or the student should apply whatever the language they learned in the classroom, that should be applied in their day-to-day life. Just in the initial stages they can start with using of simple words later once they have the confidence, I can speak in English or I can communicate with others in English, definitely it is making as a part of habit. So, that is very important one as a part of this practicing. And teaching aids required. So, in this part we have to think about the what type of teaching aids were required. Based on this we can go for the required TLM. And the next one is assessment. So, after completing the unit, so whatever the unit may be, the assessment part, which is nothing but giving an evaluation for the student as well as to the teacher also. So, based on the assessment part, is there any mistake with the teacher? Definitely they can rectify their mistake and search for the other alternatives or the better alternatives to make the student understand the topic in a proper way. Means here the way of changing of method of teaching, that is for the teacher part. So, the assessment is in both the cases for the student as well as for the language teacher. Coming to the student part, exactly where they are committing mistakes, whether they are doing mistakes or more errors were committed in the grammatical part, or whether maybe with the writing of the content as it is, maybe having combination of with the essay type questions or short answers, where they are exactly committing mistakes. This should be very clear in the assessment part. So, based on that the teacher can assess themselves and the pattern or the way of teaching should be changed with the help of this assessment. Coming to the discourses. So, to especially we are talking about the discourses to make the academic planning in a proper way. The discourses are playing an important role. So, here the discourses are especially based on the achieving the academic standards. So, the academic standards are very important one in our day to day life. So, here the coming to the academic standards, we can have around 7 academic standards, that is talking about the listening comprehension. So, the listening comprehension is the first academic standard, and speaking, reading comprehension and conventions of writing, vocabulary, grammatical awareness and the creative expression. So, this is creative expression may be in the form of either orally they can express or it can be expressed in the form of written form. So, the especially coming to the academic standards part, listening comprehension, the students are listening to the classroom with the comprehension, paying lot of attention to listen to the concept, and speaking, whatever they listen with the comprehension, that is making the learner or the student to speak out. To make reading as very effective reading, they have to concentrate while reading the textbook or any other related material. So, that should be reading comprehension. So, comprehension is nothing but making the student having intention to learn. It is making the student to concentrate on that particular topic. The next one, conventions of writing. So, based on the listening comprehension, speaking as well as the reading comprehension, it is making the learner to conventions of writing. What way is comfortable for them to write? Definitely they are ready to express. And the next one, vocabulary. So, this is the vocabulary is possible only making the student to read number of books with the comprehension, then they have the much vocabulary with them. So, grammatical awareness. So, once the child is having confidence on speaking English with others or communicate with others in English, in the initial we are not looking into the grammatical. So, later once they have the confidence of speaking English, definitely we have to correct them towards the grammatical awareness, and we have to make them perfect with the different parts of speeches. And the next last academic standard is talking about the creative expression. So, here the creativity can be come out with their own like oral, or it may be in the form of writing part. So, here the academic standards are very important one in the, it is giving an importance or which is nothing but in reaching or the objective educational objectives. So, here the knowledge and skills. So, the knowledge and skills that students are expected to learn and use them at specific stage of their educational life at large. So, to achieve all this we have to concentrate on the academic standard. So, while these academic standards were introduced for the student, definitely we have to fulfill all the discourses. So, the discourses are defined as the written or oral communication that takes place between two or more people. So, the discourses are defined as the written or oral communication that takes place between two or more people. The discourse is a matter of style and the degree of formality we need to observe at various point of time and situation. So, here the discourses can be defined in either it may be in the form of oral or it may be in the form of written communication. This will be among two persons, that takes place among the two people. So, the discourse is a matter of style, it is a style, and the degree of formality we need to observe at various points of time and the situations. So, based on according to the situation or according to the time being, we have to use different types of way of expression and all those. So, the discourse relate to the type of social competence we need to acquire while communicating either through speech or writing. So, the discourse is relating to the social competencies we need, exactly the communication is needed or the social competencies were needed while communicating either orally or in the form of writing. When two people communicate either orally, when two people were communicating either orally or in the written form. So, the communication will be in two ways, either orally or in written form, certain based on the certain societal rules governed by them. So, here to communicate with others, either we have to go for written form or the oral form. These will be societal rules governed to communicate with others. So, these rules are captured in the form of 6 questions by eminent linguists. So, here the societal rules governed by them to communicate with two people or communication among the others by capturing in the form of different types of questions. Especially this is talking about 6 questions by the eminent linguists. So, in that we have to look into first one is talking about who, what, where, when, why and how. So, these are the major 6 questions were suggested while talking to others or while writing part, which was suggested by eminent linguists. So, the first point is talking about, or the first WH form is talking about whom. So, here with who you are talking, am I talking to anyone, who is speaking. So, based on that our conversation will be takes place. In the question form, in the writing part also, exactly they are talking about which character in the lesson or which part of the question they asked, that should be very clear. So, who is the first suggested by the eminent linguist in the 6 questions, and the next one is what I am talking, that should be very clear. So, what I am talking, am I talking in a proper way or exactly it is related to the subject or whether it is related to the other issues. What I am talking, whether whatever I am talking to others, that was really the situation which I spoke the same topic, is it is convenient the place to speak, that should be very clear. And next, where I am speaking. For example, if you are talking to your mother, definitely your language will be different. If you are talking to your teacher, definitely the language will be different. So, where you are talking, that should be, means here the place is taken a crucial role in the where question type. And next one, when. So, based on the when. For example, if you want to talk to your teacher in the morning hours, the timings, because the morning timings are very crucial for each and everyone. When you are talking to the teacher in the morning hours, how they expressed. If the same question, or if you want to talk to your teacher in the evening hours while reaching home or any other disturbances, how they respond, that will be different. And coming to why I am talking to others, why I am speaking to someone else, that should be very clear. And next one, in what way you are talking with them, how whether it may be in the polite manner or whether it may be in the form of commanding or whether it may be in the form of questioning. So, what way and how you are speaking to others. So, these should be very clear among the speaker as well as the learner. So, these are the major 6 questions by the suggested by the eminent linguists. So, the forms were usually we come to know that WH forms, WHO, what, where, when, why and how, these are the different questions. So, as we know, we are talking about the teaching part. So, the teaching is a complex skill. So, the teaching is a complex skill. This is needed for the specific training. The teaching is needed for specific training technique to acquire the skills. So, the teaching is a complex skill. It needed for specific training. So, if there is no proper training, definitely it is going to become as a tough task to the especially for the teachers. So, there is a need for specific training technique to acquire the skills. Teaching is a major skill. So, the teaching skill is a major skill. One gets to learn how to teach by mastering its sub skills and becomes better teacher over a period of time. So, here by making practice, by making regular practice, each and every skill is going to be get perfected. Each and every skill is going to be get perfected. So, here the teaching itself is not a simple task, it is a complicated skill. So, the teaching is a complex skill. If there is no proper training techniques were given to the teacher, definitely they are going to face so many problems with the students while teaching or making the learner to understand the topic in a proper way. So, here the proper training techniques were very important one in acquisition of the skills. So, the teaching is a major skill. The teaching is a major skill. So, one gets to learn how to teach. One gets to learn how to teach. This is very clear to the teacher. So, what way I have to teach, how to teach, that should be very clear with the teacher. When it is going to be possible for the teacher, it is possible only by mastering its sub skills, by mastering the sub skills and become better teacher over a period of time. So, to become a better teacher, they should be perfect with these skills along with the sub skills. Once they have command over all the skills or practicing the skills in their day to day life, definitely they are going to become as a better teacher for the over a period of time. In this we are looking into the micro teaching. So, this is also one of the teaching technique to make the teacher as comfortable while teaching. So, before going to this micro teaching, the teaching is in a two, one is micro teaching, the other one is macro teaching. So, in this micro teaching, it is the time is limited only for few minutes, it is around 5 to 10 minutes. The part is very small, the word itself is indicating micro, small part, means here the whole classroom is consisted with the different types of skills. So, the 45 minutes of classroom is a combination of different skills. So, the micro teaching is talking about only one particular skill, it is around for 5 to 10 minutes. So, here why we are looking into for micro teaching? So, the micro teaching is a training technique, but not a teaching technique. So, before entering into the teaching, regular teaching or the regular classroom for 45 minutes, we are making the trainee as a technique part of the micro teaching. So, the micro teaching is a training technique, but it is not the teaching technique, it is only the training technique as a part of their course, as a part of their teacher training course. The micro teaching is a technique, it is a part of technique, but not the teaching technique. So, these micro teaching is making the trainee to feel comfortable to explain all the skills in a proper way, because this micro part is talking about hardly for the 5 to 10 minutes time, which is limited with the only one particular skill, among the peer group. Within the peer group only it is going to be demonstrated in the classroom, so that they are going to feel comfortable to perform this micro teaching. So, the micro teaching is one way of providing the initial practice in a discrete manner to help a novice acquire different skills of teaching. So, here the micro teaching is one of the best way of providing the initial practice. So, before going to start with the macro teaching, the micro teaching is the initial practice in a discrete manner. For example, if the student committed any mistake while performing micro skill, definitely in the presence of that particular subject teacher, the mistake is going to be rectified, so that each and every skill is going to be get perfected with the training to help a novice acquire different skills of teaching. So, the micro teaching is one way of providing the initial practice for the training. So, by looking into the structure, so as we already know, the skill, it is an ability. The skill is an ability. Each and every individual is having their own abilities. So, this ability can be confined, or we can make the ability as a skill. So, each and every individual is having their own skills. So, based on this, the skill is an ability. So, once we know the ability of the individual, once we know the ability of the learner, definitely that skill we have to bring it out. So, bring it out means we have to make them to practice. Once they have the practice over that particular skill, definitely the skill is going to be get as refined, means here getting perfection, which is going to become as a fruitfulness. 100% justification will be done. Skill gets refined. So, before going to get the skill refined, we have to give proper practice, proper training, then only the skill is going to be refined. Once the skill gets refined, the next refined skill is an art. So, automatically once the skill was refined, so the refined skill is an art, and once the skill is become as an art, definitely we can convert that art as a artist. The skill can be confined as a artist. So, the person with refined skill is an artist. For example, in the initial stages, if we look into the dancers or singing a song or artist, so they have their own ability of drawing, or they have their own ability of dance or singing. In the initial stages, that should be recognized. So, once the skill of the individual were recognized on the practice, definitely that skill is going to be get perfected. The skill is going to be get as a perfected. So, once the skill was perfected, definitely it is going to become as an art. So, once they have the confidence about that particular skill, which is make them as a perfect with that through the regular practice, they are going to become as a artist. For example, nowadays we are more number of artists we have in all the areas, in all the fields we have so many artists. So, the artists are come out with their own practice and come out with their own skills. So, once we have to make them these life structure in the especially getting skill perfection, further practice keeps the art alive. So, that definitely once they become as an artist, one are going to become as an artist with the writing skill, one may be with the singing, or one may be with the drawing. So, different fields we have. So, based on that, the skill is an ability. Through the practice, it is going to be get refined. So, once the skill was refined, then that is going to become as an art. Once they know all the techniques, clues, then that is going to become as a artist. So, this is a process. Further practice keeps the art as a alive. So, this is in a simple format or the simple cycle which has given for the skill refinement. So, in this we have to look into, so to get with the perfect with one skill, we have to look into the different types of sub skills. So, in the sub skills, questioning skill, explaining, narrating, describing, illustrating, stimulus variation, reinforcement, blackboard work, classroom management, and next one is integrating. So, the components of each sub skills. Here the components of sub skills were categorized into 10 sub skills. The first one is talking about the questioning skill. Questioning skill. So, it is a part of sub skill. So, in this questioning skill, we have to look into some components like grammatical part, appropriateness, distribution, appreciating and rephrasing, especially appreciating part. Once we are teaching to the student of poetry, definitely they must appreciate the poet thoughts, that is appreciating part. So, in the questioning form, the grammaticality should be taken care, appropriateness, the correctness and the distribution along with the rephrasing and appreciating. These are the major components which were incorporated in the sub skill of questioning. Coming to the next sub skill is explaining. So, while the explanation is going on to the students, to the learner, we have to look into the grammaticality, and the same time appropriateness. For example, how exactly the word should be pronounced, appropriate, correct pronunciation, and next one length and relevance, in what extent it is exactly relevant to that particular topic, and feedback. So, these are the components considered in the explaining part. Coming to the narrating or the narration of the story. So, the choice of the story, the tone, gestures, beginning and conclusion. So, before entering or before going to start the narration, we have to look into the what way we have to begin the story and what way we have to conclude. That should be very clear, the beginning part and the ending part. In the middle, what are the components should be there, what are the characters or what are the different parts are included in this. So, ultimately that should be a meaningful narration, so that it will be very clear to the student. If is there any lapses in the beginning, if the conclusion was not in a proper way, definitely it is going to become as a not the successful narration. So, here the choice of the story, so the explanation of the story or that should be very interesting to the learners, and while explaining we have to follow the gestures. So, what way you are going to express, the gestures are very important one, especially for the learners, and the same time the tone, where exactly we required with the high pitch, where exactly required with the proper stress, these all should be very clear with the teacher. So, these are the major areas in the sub skill of narration. Describing. So, while describing a story or while describing any poem or whatever it may be, we have to look into the grammaticality. All the times we have to focus more on the grammaticality, so that the student is going to become the grammaticality as a part of regular work. So, the grammaticality, use of proper words involving learners. So, wherever we require the learners involvement, definitely we have to make them to involve. So, here the communication or the explanation of the classroom should not be one way of teaching, that should be the active participation of the learners, that should be two-sided instead of one way communication. And the next sub skill is illustrating. Learner mode of illustrations or the verbal or pictorial. So, to make the student understand the concept in a proper way, we have to make them to attract towards the classroom with the proper illustrations, or by giving more number of examples, which may be in the form of verbal, or sometimes we can have the availability of the pictorial. So, that is making the student or the learner active in the classroom, so that the theme will be impressed in their minds. And the next one is talking about the stimulus variation. So, here once the teacher follow the stimulus variation in the class. Stimulus is nothing but encouraging the student to learn the content in a proper way. So, here to make the student all the times as active for the 45 minutes of the class, we have to follow certain gestures and change in voice. If you are doing in a role model, or if you are acting in a animal, or if you are acting like a king or any other characters which were there, definitely there will be a change in the voice. So, that will be the modulation of the voice is making to show attention towards the class. And reinforcement, and this is nothing but probing questions, verbal and non-verbal. So, this may be in the form of probing questions or verbal and the non-verbal. And blackboard work. So, while using the blackboard, these all the questions or the answers or whatever the words given by the student, that should be written on the blackboard. So, we have to maintain the blackboard in a neat way or in the clean. And next one, while writing on the blackboard, we have to look into the errors in writing. So, in the classroom management, which is very important one in the maintaining the classroom in a proper way. So, the seating, instructing disciplines, giving feedback, and next one which is making them to usage of the teaching aids. These all we have to look into that, and using the teaching aids. So, what type of teaching aid we are using, and usage of the teaching aid, that should be according to the time being. Based on the time being, we have to introduce the teaching aids. And the next one is integrating. So, appropriate use of sub skills we have to integrate as per the requirement of the topic or the content. So, here these are the major components on the sub skills of the to make the classroom as very effective one. So, here we have to all the times we have to focus more on this, and the next time we have to concentrate on the listening skills, or especially talking about the LSRW. So, here academic standards are also focusing the major 4 academic standards like listening comprehension, speaking, reading comprehension, and the writing part. So, the creative writing. So, these are the major points for the language part. So, to get success with these all these basic skills of language, the academic standards were taking a crucial role, which is nothing but fulfilling the educational objective. So, while framing these all the educational objectives, we have to keep in the mind of the all the discourses that should be achieved by the learners, and the same time the discourses we have to keep in the mind. While framing, we have to look into different aspects or different patterns of questions like WH form questions, and we have to keep in the mind. So, these academic standards especially helping the teachers in teaching tasks. So, based on that only the planning is going to become as a successful planning. So, here this is focusing majorly on language, knowledge and the skill, what the students are expect to learn. In general, the students are going to be expected to learn knowledge and skill. So, these should be a part of day to day their life, and the same time these knowledge and skill should be useful for them in their life at the large time. So, to get our planning as a successful, we have to look into the teaching techniques. So, that is one of the micro teaching is one of the teaching technique which we are looking into that. So, that we have to keep in the mind. While framing these all the planning, we have to concentrate on the preparation of the annual plan or the year plan, and the next one period plan or the lesson plan. These all the points we have to keep while framing all the plans. So, especially the planning, especially we have to focus on the objectives and what type of activities we are trying to prepare, and what type of strategy is making you to understand the lesson in a proper way. And not only the activities, we have to make the activities as a practice. So, then only the language is going to be get perfected. So, based on this we have to prepare the teaching aids required. So, each and every topic is required with the different types of teaching aids. So, we have to look into that while framing all the planning part. And the next part is talking about assessment, which is nothing but the evaluation. So, the assessment part it is going to be helpful for the teacher as well as to the student. So, based on that there will be a change of method of teaching for the teacher as well as in what way the student can come out with their errors or the mistake. So, this is a proper planning is going to be get successful to complete the period or the as a 45 minutes of successful classroom. Teaching language is different, but making the learner to understand in a proper way is entirely different. So, if there is no proper planning, we can't reach the objective of that particular classroom in teaching that particular theme. So, these are major points we have to focus while planning the classroom teaching. So, the main focus we have to keep in the academic standards and the discourses. So, these all major areas which we have to keep in the mind. Thank you.